Yes. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about there is no joy without courage. What does this mean to you? Just so that you know if this really pertains to you and if this is going to be a good idea, right? I'm talking to the two cameras, so do you see me going up with my head? I'm looking at your questions here too, okay? So is this going to be a good idea for you in terms of how does this pertain to me? Well, if you're feeling that there is a lot of overwhelming thoughts or emotions that things are not working, or there's a big problem or a big challenge that is just not necessarily working or the way you wanted it to work. Let me go a little bit up. The way you wanted it to work, right? Or the way you felt that you could make it out to work, then this video is a really good video for you, because what we want to talk about here is how can I process and hold space to whatever is in transition that is helping me evolve, that usually comes up as a challenge, or that usually comes up as a conflict, or as a problem, or as something that I just really don't know how to manage, right? How can I process that, but also keep going with my life, right? Like keep processing life in a way where things are still moving, in a way where things are still getting done, things are getting done, and I can have a conversation. I don't have to retrieve, and I don't have to stop life in order for me to keep moving. And so if you're feeling like, yeah, I am moving, but I'm not really relating or creating bonds with people, or really connecting with the world outside of me or inside of me, but my mind and my brain is just like in an overly mode, just reminding me of what's not working, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to handle it, and I don't know, if that is what's coming up, then I want to suggest this particularly new way of seeing life. And what this requires is a different way to see how we can put and place our attention and our will to move ourselves around what life is bringing us. Yeah. So instead of feeling, because what's happening in that moment is like, with my attention, remember, it's our attention what helps us create our reality, right? Whatever I'm focusing, that's what's going to expand. That's what's going to move the energy in that area. So what's happening is I'm just really focusing on that part of my life. So I'm pretty much just seeing this little part of my life, and I don't have the attention and the capability of seeing a bigger spectrum of life. And so it's kind of like you're seeing, one of those beautiful night skies that have a lot of stars and that have infinite amount of stars. And we're just focusing on one, and we cannot see the other, or we're just focusing on that little space and we cannot see the other. And that's because our brain thinks that you can only see one or the other, right? You can only see this bad thing, and when this bad thing is fixed, this problem is fixed, and you resolve it, then you're going to be allowed to the other. Then you're going to be deserving of the other. Then you can move forward. Then you will be happy, right? That's the way our ego works. And so we keep our minds so narrowed down, trying to resolve that, because our ego convinces us once we dealt with that, then we can move into the other things. What we don't understand in that moment, because we haven't been modeled that, or because nobody has taught us that, or because we just don't have enough practice on that, is that a lot of those feelings, a lot of those stars, a lot of the things that are happening right in this moment are not exclusive from each other, right? So as much as I'm going through this really bad or challenging, painful transition, many other things are also happening in my life and in the world right now. And the more I broaden my perspective to also receive that in the reality of my perception, the more I can then feel whole and complete and create the meaning and the joy that I want to feel at any given moment without depending on something to change, on a problem to be solved, on somebody to move or not move. Yeah. And so how do I do that, right? How do I broaden my perspective so that I'm not only seeing and focusing so harshly on this one problem, on this one thing? Well, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. And it changes depending on what is the situation. So if there is a particular situation, if there is a particular situation that you want to, put here on the board, I'm right now on IG if you want to talk about it, this could be a really great way to see it, because when we generalize this part, right, it just feels like unattainable. And we don't want to really feel that the solution or our capability to see everything as a whole is unattainable because it's so generalized. I can give you some parameters, right? The parameters are, the more we practice, this is the first thing, right? The more we practice containing the emotions that the situations are igniting in us, right? So let's say it's a low frequency emotion. Before I put that aside or I try to reject it, and when you try to solve the problem so that you don't feel like that anymore, that is rejecting that emotion. Okay. So when you say to yourself, yeah, let me just do whatever I need to do to get out of here, or to change this person, or to change the circumstance because I don't want to feel this emotion anymore, then what I'm doing is I'm believing my ego that it's saying, yeah, in order for you to feel good, you have to get rid of this emotion. And that is what we don't want to, that's the false lies story that we don't want to get trapped into. Because that's not true. We are capable and able to manage, receive, contain, and process all types of emotions all at the same time. And it is our ability to broaden that capability that's going to allow us to not feel that drain from a specific emotion. Yeah. Yeah, moving into acceptance of that bad emotion. Yes, how do I accept that bad emotion? Because the paradox here is one part of my brain is saying this feels awful, and everything that my brain feels as non-pleasure, it's a threat, right? It's danger. And so that's why our brain, our ego, our inner child, the voice of our parents, or whatever it is that it's going through our primary programming, it's feeling like I cannot feel this because it feels bad. So the first thing to accept a bad emotion, and before we can even process it, is to welcome things that might not feel amazing. Yes, not only emotions, but it's a great practice to just notice with creating that space between the stimuli, in this case, the bad emotion is a stimuli, and my reaction. Because what matters is, how do I react to this bad emotion? Yeah, how do I react to this bad emotion? How do I react to this bad situation? Bad. There's no bad or good things. There's just things, right? But if I'm perceiving it as bad and it feels hurtful in my body because it's touching my primary wound, then I'm going to have a natural human tendency to want to reject pain. Yeah. So how do I not reject that pain? I start practicing that welcoming of hi, just say hi, just say hi to it, just start welcoming it, you know. The first contact, the first connection, this does look like talking to yourself, right? But it's like, hi, okay, you're here. I'm interested in you. I'm interested in integrating myself with you by understanding what you want to tell me, understanding what this feeling is coming from. But a really good technique is treating it as a child throwing a tantrum, because that's what it is. It's your inner child that haven't really healed throwing a tantrum and feeling really sad or feeling really angry, and never had been given the opportunity to process those emotions, right? So now we're both learning, right? The inner child tantrum and the new parent, that is your consciousness, right? Now we're both learning and saying, okay, how can we process this? When we were a child, or maybe in our lineage, we didn't understand how to process our emotions, but now we're going to understand. So this video is not about processing emotions. However, processing emotions is the beginning to broaden our perspective so that we can welcome many things at the same time. And we can practice that with our emotions, because our inability to welcome and seeing everything that's happening in our life inclusively at the same time comes from our inability to process our emotions. That comes from our caregivers' inability to process their emotions. So there's no blame game here at all, but there's just the consciousness of, oh, okay, I can label this to tame it, right? Because if I label it, I understand. I understand now where this is coming from. Like how Buddha would invite these bad emotions in for tea. Can't remember the exact saying. Yes, yes. And there's another quote too. I think it's by Rumi that says, my house is always open for friends and enemies. I think my house is always open for friends and enemies, or something like that. So yes, right? And so how else, besides practicing with my emotions, can I practice that broaden our perspective? Well, with the old tool of Thanksgiving, right? Being grateful for the other things. And this might be not leveled or frustrating at the beginning, because it feels like this problem seems so big. And how is that going to help me if I'm just, thanking God for warm water and for having a shelter and for this job? At the beginning, it might feel really out of balance and you might not see the correlation. But knowing that what you're actually doing is helping your attention shift into something else, so that you can, with your attention and your energy, expand really good areas of your life, then that is going to help you, even though you won't see or feel the results right away. Because again, whatever we focus on expands. And so a lot of times what happens is, chances are this is happening to you, is like you're not aware that you're overly focusing on that problem. And what we're doing is shifting and transferring our energy with our will, not an autopilot, with our presence, right? Which means when I'm present, I can't respond consciously to stimuli, which is the key of the transformation I am in and the results I'm going to get. right? I'm not sleepwalking or reacting or being in defensive mode to all the situations. I am consciously choosing, right? And saying, oh, I see this. This is something that happens every second, right? Oh, I see this. There's space. There's a space, and that space is a space that nurture injected involuntarily. There's space between this stimuli and the reaction that I'm going to choose. Oh, and how do I create that space? With my inner practice, right? With the being able to hold emotions out of curiosity, out of interest, out of love, with meditation, right? Being able to stay in the midst of all the monkey mind gibberish that we have on a daily basis. So practicing that muscle is going to help us be able to look at all the starry sky and not just focusing on one thing, unless that is what I want to do voluntarily. Because the problem is we're not doing it voluntarily, right? The problem is we feel lost in that dark hole of I'm lost in this problem. And we feel like this, it feels like a cave because we feel like that problem or that inconvenience or that downside or that conflict or that crisis or that chaos or whatever it is, or that fear. A lot of times it hasn't even happened and it won't even happen, right? It's just we're so untrustful and doubting and we're already so afraid of the worst that could happen. That in and of itself is the problem. Because can you see that the problem is not the problem, but it's how we've chosen to leave the problem, and how we've chosen to live that problem is a lot of times not even there as a means to an option, because we're so asleep, we're sleepwalking in those choices that we're not even making a choice, we're reacting to it. So a lot of times a conversation like this or wordings or words like this are like, right, I have a choice. Right, that's the wake up. That's the wake up. Yes, I do have a choice. It's true, I have a choice. I don't have to let my inner child lead or my shadow lead. But I do have to, or I do get to choose the places and the people that I can be with so that I can show and be and express those shadows and those lights, right? And I would never find those places in people if I cannot be with my own shadows and lights. And when I cannot be with my own shadows and lights, what I feel is shame. What I feel is blame. What I feel is a wish to hide the shadow so nobody sees it. So if that is what I'm experiencing right now, then I won't be able to be in a space with people that can do that for me because I cannot do it for myself. And so that's why it always starts with you, right? That's the famous phrase. It always starts with me, because everything I'm seeing outside is just a projection of what's happening inside. So how do I start with me? Summary, go back to processing emotions and make them inclusive. I can feel angry and also love this person at the same time, right? I can feel frustrated or sad about this situation that's not resolving in my work or in my job, and also be willing and in a good mood and believing in myself and in my career. I can feel all of those things at the same time. But first I have to open myself up to see them, to feel them, and inclusively welcome all of it, because then I'm welcoming my whole self and allowing it to be as part of my human experience. And then that means other people are going to do the same thing with me. And then that means eventually I will be able to do that with other people, right? I will be able to welcome them and separate who they are with what they do, right? Because my expression of love and connection comes and connects with who they are, because we are both one, meaning we're both made out of the same essence of the universe. And that's where the connection comes. Now, whatever they are doing means that the relationship with this world, it is in transformation, it is in process, it is in transit, it is evolving, it is part of this human experience. That needs to be separate from the essence of who they are, because my connection is with who they are. And whatever they're doing, I can disagree or agree. But that separation allows me to be present for those people in or out of my conscious decision with their shadows and their lights. I can see their shadow and be like, wow, I can welcome your shadow, because I too have shadows. Yeah. So I can welcome it, even if it's a shadow that I've never seen in my life since 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It doesn't matter, but I had it once, even if it's one that I've never experienced, or I think I've never experienced. I have some sort of degree in that, especially if I'm seeing it. If I'm seeing it in you, there's a degree of it in me, no doubt, no exception. Our reaction, 100% anticipation, is the real problem. Yeah, the reaction, the things that happen are neutral, right? What's happening in our life, the truth is that they're neutral. And this is why they could be cause so many different effects to so many different people. That's when we say, hey, this is subjective, this is relative. Because, the fact that I am 13 years old and I am pregnant in this country is not the same situation that if it happens in a different country with a different culture, with a different family, with a different background, right? So there is a compilation of things that, because they're not really attached to anything in particular, they're just happening. They're part of life. They're just neutral, right? Another baby, it's ready to be born. Now, my reaction to that situation, whether I am the one with the baby in me, or whether it's the person in front of me, or whether it's the person in that neighborhood, or whether it's the news that I see about X, Y, and Z, that is what I have to work with. That reaction is what is telling in 100 million ways, and that's what actually allows me to understand where I'm standing. Yeah, where I'm standing and about this situation, and about what are my possibilities of reaching emotional intelligence. Because the way I'm reacting to this problem tells me what are the places that I need to work with inside of me. And no matter what those places are, it's going to require courage. But the good thing about that, the benefit about that courage is what? That I get to then feel the sustainable fulfillment, significance, and meaning that I'm creating through my transformation. And that equals joy, right? Which is the subject for today. There is no joy without the courage that it takes us to feel the pain and the shadows inside of us, and expand our view to always remember that we are more than that. Yeah, that requires courage. But without that courage and getting that expansion, we are never going to feel the true joy. We might experience bursts of happiness, which are also good. I'm not saying they're bad. They're also really good. But our life and our growth and our transformation cannot depend on those particular splurs of happiness. where we move kind of like a chess game, where we move like, oh, you go here, I quit this here, and that means it's not going to bother me anymore. So I'm happy. It's kind of like saying, oh, no, I want to lose weight, right? And so my solution to that weight problem is I'm not going to buy any more sweets. And that way I won't feel tempted. So I'm going to be home all day and I won't have anything to eat and sweets, right? And so I solved the problem. Did I? No, but is it a bad idea to do that? No. So that behavioral change where you're moving the chess pieces and saying, this is it, it's welcome. But it's not the one thing that is going to solve it all, because there's roots under that behavior. And so I need to go deep into that so that I can inclusively understand where is my pain point in. But simultaneously, I can do the change of behavior and I can do that tactic and I can do that structure. It's just that I cannot rely on that one change of behavior to solve my problem, because it's not sustainable. It might solve my problem for that phase of my life, or for the first month, or for that week. But it's going to start bursting out in other places because I didn't go to the root. And only through going to the root can I then practice my ability to welcome my shadows, my wounds, my limiting beliefs, my inner programming, that it's been there since I was born into this world and that I haven't touched it. In order to change that, I have to first welcome it. I have to first look at it. I have to first own it. I have to first do all of those things before I can even transform that. And so it's naive, it's sweet, it's cute to approach a problem and say, yes, solve it. Just don't buy any more sweets. Don't go out to restaurants. Yeah. And then have a trainer that really forces me into exercising. What are we doing? We're setting up parameters and structures that are helping us from the outside in, but the inner problem, it's not being solved, right? Yeah, like how a werewolf chains himself up during the full moon, but still is a werewolf. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and a lot of those tactics are wonderful. But nothing is as important as the energy that's behind where you're putting your attention on. Yeah, because the reason why I'm putting my attention on this problem so much is found in the energy behind it. Yeah. So if I am trying to solve a problem I have with my mother, and I'm just like, she doesn't understand. She doesn't, give in. She's like acting like blah, blah, blah. Notice how my attention is there. Yeah. But what's the quality of the energy that's sustaining that attention? That's important. It's important to know if that quality, it's truly coming from a conscious choice between the stimuli and the reaction, or that it's coming from my wound, right? From my intuition or from my ego. Because that is the quality of the energy that is going to impregnate any movement that attention creates. And that is the quality of energy that's going to impregnate all the results that attention creates. And low frequency energy cannot hold results for too long. Cannot. So we'll later on see that, that wasn't sustainable. My mom understood that day and gave in, but look, 6 months later, she's back to X, Y, and Z. Yeah, because that energy wasn't sustainable, because that energy wasn't coming from you receiving, holding, and loving all of your shadows and all of your lights. Okay. I love this. Thank you so much. I love this like comments. I'm going to be here next Monday at 10:30 a.m. Okay, go to my YouTube channel, subscribe there. You'll see the notification so that you can let the alerts tell you. 2 important messages. My membership, Luna membership, what's happening this month is we're having an accountability class, master class. We have energy circles, master class, and healing together coaching sessions. This month, we're having accountability master class because the spring you started, the year you started, and we need that structure, that push that's going to keep us focused on what we're manifesting. And so if you want to be part of that, you can be part of my membership. Link is in my profile, or you can just purchase that class separately. That is $33, really affordable. You get a whole workbook and the class is live. If you purchase it after the live session, then that raises up to $77. And you can also, in the membership, if you're part of the membership, you can have access to my one-on-one coaching program if you're part of the membership, okay? Now, if you just want to get news and things of what's happening in my world, please sign up to my newsletter. You also get that in my LinkedIn profile, and sign up to my YouTube channel. You get 2 videos a week, and I'm just having this type of conversation. Thank you, you stupid mouse. That's a funny name. Thank you for your lovely interventions, and I loved having these comments with you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, YouTube.